there we go. I'd like to call the January 22nd, 2025 meeting of the Cohasset School Committee to order. Good evening, everyone. This meeting is streamed live on Facebook and recorded. It's also being broadcast on Cohasset 143 TV. And you may also participate virtually by logging on to Zoom, utilizing the link that appears at the top of our agenda. Would all committee members that are present please indicate so in roll call? Mr. Carr.
Present.
Mr. Dial.
Present.
Mrs. Hannah.
Present.
Mrs. Leskey.
Present.
Chair is also present, giving us a full panel of 5 members. The meeting is officially called to order, and I'd ask that all who are able to please rise to the recitation of our nation's Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. The first agenda item, as always, is public comment. And this part of the agenda is reserved for questions or areas of concern or any discussion point that you would like to raise that's not related to something that's already on our agenda. If you have a concern or a question, discussion point relating to something on the agenda, just wait until we arrive at that point in the meeting, make yourself known, and you shall be heard. But at this point, I want to give anyone who is attending virtually, I don't see anyone in the audience that's here for public comment. So anyone that is participating virtually may utilize the Q&A feature on Zoom to enter your name and address and any discussion point that you would like to raise. Now I'll give you a few minutes to do that, or a few seconds anyway. And if you don't get it done at this point, don't worry. It'll pop up, and I intermittently check these comments, so we will absolutely address them. If you're a few minutes late, no problem. We want to hear from everyone, and we encourage participation. Okay, I don't see any at this point in time. Like I said, feel free to chime in as the meeting progresses. So at this point, we'll move forward to the next block of our agenda, which is Block C, which is reserved for invited guests. And we have a special invited guest who is one of the student representatives of Superintendent Shannon's Superintendent Student Advisory Council. So I would invite Mr. Jack Kearney to come to the invited guest table to present your report in any format you wish. Jack, please begin whenever you would like.
Well, thank you very much. Honored to be invited today. Student body, just a quick update on what's going on with us. It's finals week. I'm sure many of you know, so there's sort of a buzz around that, but the final schedule that was implemented / re-implemented like 2 years ago is definitely appreciated. The half days plus splitting it all up. It's definitely, that's great. It honestly wouldn't be manageable without that. So thank you all very much. Also, thank you for the lunchroom. We talked about this in Student Advisory Committee, but there's always like a lot of congestion. And I know there's been a couple new faces in the lunchroom when it comes to staff, and the skipper calf has been serving food more consistently, and that's really appreciated. It's not like, there's still definitely congestion, but that comes more from the physical space. And I'm not sure what we could do there besides knocking down some walls. So yeah, lunch is, at the end of the day, it's a good problem to have. You know, people want the food. So again, thanks for that. Also, there's a bit of a, I don't know if anxiousness is the right word to use, but it's the word I'm gonna use around the phone ban on Monday. I know that's a thing. At the end of the day, there's gonna be moaning and groaning because you're taking away something we like. But I think it'd be nice if there was more communication on like why, because I don't know if that's been communicated to like the planning, I forget the name of the phone committee, and like we talked about it in our committee, but I think the wider student body, if it could be explained like specifically why you're taking away at schools, because like we know phones are like bad for us, you know, we hear that all the time. It's like why at school? I think that'd be benefit I think that'd be to the benefit of the students and to the staff, because people are less likely to intentionally try to break a rule if they understand why it's happening. Yeah,
Okay.
that's, if you guys have any comments or questions, I'd love to hear it.
Aspire Will, if you have any questions for Jack about school or student body concerns? Ms. Zaleski?
Could you please tell us more about the phone ban and how it's working, or sort of what so kids come in for the day and phones stay in the backpacks or phones get turned in somewhere. So how is this all, what are the logistics of this program?
My understanding was it goes in the bag, and then there's like, if they see it, there's like a first time offense thing, and then it builds up to a, like, the merit on Aspen that like all your teachers can see, and like Mr. Turner, head of NHS, can see, and like it can be really bad for you. Please feel free to correct me, Mr. Shannon.
It hasn't started, it'll start on Monday.
Yeah, it starts
Yeah,
Monday.
okay. I'm just curious about the
Yeah.
inner workings. And what are your fellow students concerned about with not having their phones? Is it just the pleasure of like relaxing with your phone for 10 seconds before class, or?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes from like, what is this change besides just making our day a little less enjoyable? Because we already can't take it out during like class. I don't have a single teacher who, like, if I started just going on my phone, wouldn't call me out for it. It's like a lunch and utility thing. I think that's what people are really, I'm saying concerned, but no one's like, start, crashing out over not having their phone
Yeah,
all
yeah,
day.
yeah.
It's like, it's just, yeah, like I said, it's gonna be moans and groans no matter what, but we'll see how it goes.
Anything else for Jack?
We're doing a lot about the first grade presentation. Thanks. We like your guest, by the way, very much, for glad he's back in with us. We are making a lot of strides on the food. Is there any further suggestions of what we might be able to do better there?
Maybe I'm just not as creative as I think I am, but not really. I will say the most popular dishes are definitely the pizza, the burrito bowls, and probably the orange chicken. Putting that out there.
And Pizzagate is behind us now.
Yes.
Pizzagate is behind us.
Pizza
Oh, that's
Gate is
good.
behind us.
Grateful to have that.
Mr. Dial?
Jack, great presentation. You know what I liked about your presentation is you came, used your own voice, your own way of speaking. And you weren't afraid to give not necessarily critical, but honest feedback to the committee. So that's fantastic. We very much appreciate that. So thank you. Understand about the anxiety. I liked your turn of phrase there. Maybe it's not anxiety, but it's the word I'll use. I'm not actually going to use that myself going forward. But are there any other areas where the student body could use some, or that we should know about as the committee? I know that in the past, one of your esteemed family members was really focused on the outdoor grounds and that in areas, and then also the gym equipment as well. Is there any other areas that, as a second generation Kearney, you want to impress upon our committee?
Well, when it comes to like outdoors, yeah, we really don't get outdoors that much. I know it's winter, everything's frozen, but I mean, if more classes in the spring like want to go outside, I think that'd be awesome. I have had classes where they're like, "It's so nice out, let's do French outside." So we've done that. And that's definitely. And there are classes like environmental science, they like play in the dirt all day. So I think stuff like that's awesome. When it comes to like the weight room, I definitely have friends who like are there almost every day after school. I haven't really been, so I don't really know how like chaperoning and all the logistics gone over there, but it's definitely something that people take advantage of, both teacher and staff, or teacher and student.
Well, Jack, thank you. I look forward to your future presentations as a representative.
Anything else for Jack? Okay, so Jack, I will offer to you that first, with regards to some of the positive things you mentioned, like the quality of the food and the fitness center that's being utilized and food's being enjoyed, the Secret Service agent that you brought with you in the bag is actually responsible, as you know, for a lot of those improvements. So I think you have him in part certainly to thank. with regards to the phone issue that you addressed, I think that we will, I think Principal Scott obviously was directly involved with that. Cell phone task force is the group that was comprised of parents and your teachers and a few of your peers, as well as Mr. Scott, to sort of devise a policy for this pilot program that's going to be starting on Monday. And I think Principal Scott has taken a lot of steps to inform the various stakeholders as to like what the expectations are going to be. And you had, I think, a pretty good understanding of that. However, your point relative to the reasoning behind it and having that communicated to the student body is something that we can give more consideration to, because we certainly wanted to ensure that the student body had agency in that. And so that objective was, you know, we attempted to accomplish that by inviting student participation on the actual team. But I think it sounds like, you know, students are still wondering. So we'll work on that. I know Principal Scott is always willing to communicate with students, everything, and we'll figure out a way to do that. I think that's a fair criticism. I will offer you this personally, and you can share this with your peers beyond what I'm sure Principal Scott will do, is that the reasoning behind this pilot program was based on a book by a man named Jonathan Haidt, who wrote a book called Anxious Generation, The Anxious Generation. And there was a community read, and that book focused on the adverse impacts of technology, specifically handheld personal technology, on the development of children's brains and just child development in general. And it raised a lot of alarming concerns. So as a school district, we reacted to that, and Superintendent Shannon and the school committee participated in this very well-attended community event where families and students also, you know, spoke up. And from that cell phone task force was born in order to address these concerns that were raised in that book. And then, you know, a few of the, I think what a major point of that book was that sort of the free play that was associated with childhood in the past, and the more sort of independent and amorphous sort of social interactions between peers was being replaced by this dependence on these devices and social media. It was being replaced with more from an in-person sort of direct, authentic interaction with a digital interaction. So we're trying to avoid that. And we're trying to do right by all of you by limiting the amount of time that you have when you're in school with these devices, because it can also distract you significantly from your learning. So there's an academic element, of course, as well. It's, I think, you know, largely social emotional. So to your point that utility and lunch are two times in particular where students miss these things, there's a good reason why we don't want you to have them at those times, because especially at the lunch table, a lot of times people will be sitting and maybe conversing about something that's on here, or maybe playing a game or texting, when I have, you know, Paul Kearney sitting across the table from me, or Jack Kearney sitting across the table from me, and I am basically not interacting with them even though they're 3 feet away. And that's something that is just, it's become a problem. So that's why we want to ensure that we delivered a different experience to you, a more traditional experience in terms of social interaction as you guys are developing and growing. So that sort of is the general impetus. I think Principal Scott will do a much better job at explaining that in more maybe comprehensible and more relatable fashion to all the students. But I just wanted to let you know what was going through our heads when we thought about doing that. So we'll see. And it's a pilot program, Mike. So it's going to go through, I think, to April 4th, if I'm remembering the date correctly. So it starts Monday, and we're going to take it through to April 4th and see how it goes, because we're certain that there's going to be some unintended adverse consequences that, you know, maybe we didn't think of. And we're going to maybe have to pivot a little bit. But overall, I think we're pretty confident that it's going to be a positive thing. And it's just sort of a culture shift for you guys. Like anything, you're young, you guys will completely adjust and adapt. Then you get them after school so you can coordinate with mom and dad or your friends about rides to sports and all of that. But during school, it's really important to us that you guys have that time without them. I think it's a gift that we're trying to bestow upon you. So we'll see how it goes. So keep us posted, okay? And the SSAC will do that, I'm sure. And we will, your point is well taken, and we'll relate that to Principal Scott about maybe explaining the reasoning to the student body at large a little bit better. So thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, me personally, I think it's like once you lay it, like, I'm fortunate enough to be on the committee where we talked about the actual reasoning. So like, personally, I'm not gonna say excited, but excited to see like what happens. I'm curious, and I would love to see more communication and just like enjoying each other's company. But I think when it's just happening without that communication, it just feels like they're just doing it to do it. It just feels
It's a great point, and we're glad that you brought it to us, and we're going to address it. So that is a great example of why it's important to have the SSAC and why we're fortunate to have talented and courageous students like yourself on that committee. So thank you, Jack. And unless there's anything else you'd like to add, we're happy to let you go and do homework or whatever else you need to do now.
Study for
Yeah.
finals.
All right, finals.
Thank you all very
exactly.
much.
Thank you.
you.
Lots of finals.
Thank you.
Bye, Paul.
All right, so maybe it would be most appropriate, Superintendent Shannon, for you to let Principal Scott know about that. And I'm sure if he hasn't already anticipated a way of doing
Yeah.
that, maybe it's just helpful if he starts a little bit earlier than anticipated. I think he has a very comprehensive plan about this, so.
I think he does.
But always room for growth, right? And improvement. So that was great. Okay, moving on to the next block of our agenda is our superintendent's report. And so at this point, I turn the meeting over to our superintendent of schools, Mrs. Sarah Shannon.
Thank you. So I was going to touch on the cell phone as well, so I'm not going to repeat everything that was just shared. I will just add a couple of pieces. One, I would like to thank all of those who are on the committee for all of their work, the teachers, the administrators, the parents, and the students. It's been a lot of conversation, and though I'm not on a committee, the reports I've been getting have been that there's been some really good debate back and forth about what is right, and they've, even to the point where the original pilot was going to be for a shorter period of time, and the committee decided that they weren't going to get solid enough data, so that's why it extended to the entirety of third term. I also would share that there's going to be a pre-survey for students and a post-survey for students and I think staff, so that we can get some data. I think it's going to be very interesting to see because I think Jack brings up some really good points, and that I think students don't necessarily know the benefits and may not think there will be benefits until they experience them. As you look at news coming out of other schools across the state of Massachusetts and across the country, when schools have taken these steps at the high school level, because in Cohasset, we're actually away for the day already through grade 8. But when they do it at the high school level, there are such positive student interaction improvements that happen, and student stress levels start to go down a little bit. And, I think there is both the student superintendent, student advisory council, and at my own dinner table, right? There's apprehension is maybe the word around this from the students. It's interesting because all of them talked about like, they're not quite sure what it's going to be like. They're not necessarily upset about it. They're just curious to see what happens. I think that the unknown is real for them. They haven't really had lives without cell phones. And so this will be an interesting exercise. And there are even states who from the state level are saying away for the day, K through 12. And so I wonder, could that be in our future as a state? And so this is a way for us to figure out how this works for us here in Cohasset. So I'm sure that Principal Scott will keep us informed and up to date, and it will be really interesting to see how the kids adapt and adjust. So So that is happening. Additionally, it's been a busy 2 weeks since we last met. We kicked off our strategic planning process, which has been awesome. We have held forums. We have actually held 7 forums. We've had some staff forums, student forums, family forums, a municipal forum. You all had a forum. We had a leadership forum as well. We had a family forum that was in person last week, and actually currently right now on Zoom is another family forum for anyone who couldn't make it in person. We're grateful for everybody who has taken the time to participate in these forums. The information has been really robust, and we're looking forward to pulling it all together with TLA to use as data that we can use to building our strategic plan. Additionally, for those who haven't been able to participate yet, we will be sending out a survey to all families. We'll be sending it to students grades 6 through 12 and to the community, the wider community as well. We're actually going to be asking that any family who has a recent graduate in the last 1 to 3 or 4 years, that your graduate also may want to fill this out. And that's going to be coming out, and that survey will be open for about 2 weeks. And so we hope that people will fill out that survey because that data is going to be really important. And my hope, sort of sneak peek ahead, that we had over 500 respondents to our survey about vacations. And so I'm hoping that maybe we get just as much interest in this survey about the future of the district as well. Additionally, this past Monday, it was a no school day as we celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King. And we're just grateful to the Cohasset Diversity Committee who hosted a Martin Luther King breakfast, and to Danella Clark, who spoke to us, those of us who were in attendance, and shared a message of love and caring for others, as Dr. King did as well. And finally, I want to remind people, we've been sending reminders about next Tuesday night. Next Tuesday night is the second in a series of 3 forums around the middle school and high school feasibility study. For anyone who is out there, this is the meeting to come to. This is where we are going to start to see conceptual designs for any potential building that might happen here in town. Those conceptual designs will be presented by our architects, AI3. And then the third meeting in our series, which happens after February vacation, the Tuesday after February vacation, will be where they, AI3, come back and they actually share cost estimates for those conceptual designs. And so, you know, our goal right now is not to choose a potential design. It is to gather a lot of information to see what is possible, so that when we get accepted into the MSBA core process, we have a leg up. We have this information available to us. So when we go through that process, we already have some really good ideas about what a potential new facility could look like here in Cohasset. So those are my updates, but I also want to talk a little bit about the district calendar. So moving into that conversation, I do want to thank all of the people who participated in the survey with regard to the 25-26 school year calendar. We asked really 2 questions. We asked a question around the December break, and we asked a question around the Good Friday holiday. We have literally 506 responses. That many people completed the survey. And the responses were, at least for one, overwhelmingly clear. And so we'll talk first and share with you about the responses for the December break. So with regard to December break, 72.9% of the respondents opted for the full 2 weeks off for students. 16% opted for no school from Tuesday, December 23rd to January 2nd. And 11% voted for no school on Monday. No school from Monday, the 22nd to January 1st, but coming to school on the 2nd. So really 73% of families voted for the 2 full weeks to be vacation for their children or
And
child.
what was the overall response number again?
509 or 506. So that's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
With regard to the Good Friday question, 46.8% of the respondents opted for the half day of school for Good Friday, while 28.5 opted for no school on Good Friday, and 24.7% opted for a full day of school on Good Friday. So that's something for the committee to have a conversation about. One thing that was interesting that happened as the survey was being filled out by families and staff was a phone call from the representative from the teachers who really asked if this goes the way of having 2 full weeks off, instead of potentially having professional development on January 2nd, could we actually do it on that Monday, December 22nd, because we're already in school mode? And so to come back for that Monday and then be off all the way through actually seems like a nice option. So we had that conversation. They actually surveyed their own staff members. And though it was close, their recommendation is actually to have the professional day on the 22nd. Which I think we are actually fine with, and it doesn't impact students at all. I understand that perspective. And then another suggestion that came in that is different than what was presented was originally, there's an early release day currently presented on February 6th. If that day is an early release, there's only 1 full week of school before February vacation. The suggestion was to that early release day to January 30th, so that you get 2 full weeks of school for better continuity of educational service. And so that also made sense. And so I would recommend that we actually move that February 6th early release day to January 30th. It works better for continuity of educational experience for students and staff.
Okay, thank you for that summary, Superintendent Shannon. Dr. Scollins, do you need to be made a co-host, or you are already a co-host?
I do not need to be made a co.
Okay, I know you're not up yet. I was just anticipating. Okay, so I want to state at the outset of our discussion about the calendar that there was a vital typo in the email that we sent out last Thursday, and it was my fault. I had input the school committee meeting date at which we would discuss this as January 29th, and it was today. Not that we're making a decision today anyway. We did correctly state when we were making the decision. So, I'm going to send out another email in collaboration with Superintendent Shannon, where we correct that and let people know that we will be making the decision, just so everyone knows that we'll be making the decision at the next meeting. Which will be on February 5th or 4th. February.
5th.
Be clear?
I will double check.
No, it's clear. Wednesday is, yeah, February 5th will be the meeting that we're making the decision on the calendar. So there'll be an opportunity for everyone to discuss it then too. But today was supposed to be the body of our introduction of this concept and deliberation on it. And then we're going to implement, vote to implement, excuse me, on February 5th. Just wanted to state that was an error, and I apologize. We will do better. But you will nevertheless have plenty of time to participate in this discussion if you wish. And it sounds like everyone has already sort of made their voice heard through their input on the survey, especially where we have 73% on one of the results. I mean, that seems to be a resounding response or support for that particular item. So with that said, I invite school committee members to sort of speak at will relative to the calendar and the different options.
Before that, I guess, Superintendent, let's breaking it up into 2 things on the December break. From an administrative perspective, do you have a preference as to the 2 weeks, or the 1 day missing, or the 2 day missing options?
I think that given past experiences, when you have 1 days like that, they tend to be days of low attendance and they tend to not be, as productive because of student absence as we would like. I think our teachers do a really good job of trying to make those days really meaningful days. But when you don't have all of your students, that's hard. And so they're teaching to partially full classrooms. And so I think in this case, and it's not something I would recommend every year, but in this case, I think that 2 weeks for families makes sense.
And for full disclosure, I'm fully prepared to throw my lot in with the 73%.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get that out there. I have some thoughts on Good Friday, but I can hold on that if we want to bifurcate.
No, why don't you just, no, we don't need to, just
So
give your input always.
On Good Friday, that one seems to be at least not as clearly in one result or another. And I know from prior conversations that part of the issue that we have is the economic cost of it. I also know that from the data you've given that it looks like the absences are primarily at the higher school levels. And so one thing that I'm thinking about, I still feel, I still like the idea that we do not have a religious holiday, notwithstanding the potential options of having a day of low attendance or whatnot. But I don't know that we've had a full enough cycle to really allow for that change to take hold within the district. And you're seeing the younger families have higher attendance than the older families. And if we change back now, then it never changes. And so I'm a little reticent, just sharing my own personal view, to change that on only a couple years of behavior. Because my prediction would be that after a couple more years, you'd have higher attendance on that day as the community becomes used to it. And the people who've done it for 10, 9, 8 years in a row, people have annual plans like, oh yeah, I'm going to go on Good Friday. So I think that this is a behavioral change that is grounded in good reason. So again, I'm not committed and dogmatic about it one way or the other, but I guess I would just offer my perspective that I still would lean towards having Good Friday be a school day for the reasons that we had originally made the change. So my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Dial. Ms. Hannah?
Is there data on when April vacation falls the week after Easter? Right, like, so I don't know where Good Friday fell these past few years, to your point, Mr. Dial, on. Like,
didn't
I
line up
can
with
see why there
vacation.
would be no one coming to school if April vacation were
Yeah.
right after that. So I don't know if that analysis has been done.
So we've only done it for a couple of years and it didn't come up against the vacation.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the first time it's coming up against the vacation. And that happens just like the 2-week kind of thing that you're talking about for the holiday. Every 6 or 7 years you
Yeah.
get this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the data that I had shared last week with those absences, that was the data from last year.
Okay.
So that it didn't back up to vacation.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Or Ms. Hannah, were you not finished?
No,
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just
Formulating.
gonna say, I'm on the other side of the fence from Mr. Dial on this one, where I feel like the teachers and the students are speaking by not showing up, right? Like by taking and not in a way of like revolting or anything else, but they're taking their religious holiday and students are not coming to school that day. And so I do worry about it being a productive day of learning. And I think if we are to keep it there, we need to kind of admit to ourselves that it probably isn't a productive day of learning and maybe adjust the curriculum to that standpoint, where maybe it is more of a fun activity that might actually get kids to want to like fight back on their parents to stay in school that day. But then you run into the problem of teachers actually being able to, we'll be running substitute teachers. It's costly. Like there's a lot there as opposed to it just being a religious kind of holiday. So that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Anyone else? Ms. Leskey?
The half-day option. in any experience that you have, does that actually solve for absences both from the teacher and family perspective? I feel like there may be some families who feel like a half day is okay to miss from time to time,
Mhm.
particularly it lines up with other family plans for a religious holiday weekend. And faculty, I assume, even if it's a half day and they could observe Good Friday and attend a service in the afternoon, they have the ability to say, I'm actually going to a morning service, or the service is only available to me in the morning, or the commute is such that I really can't make this work. So that the half, I'm just wondering if just sort of narrowing sort of the choices.
Yeah.
And what the half day does solve for is the last day of school.
Mhm.
And where that falls. Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure I had that
Yeah.
clear.
To sort of answer the question you started with, I actually don't have experience of having it be an early release day. I have only ever experienced having school on that day or not having school on that day.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just think it's great how many people weighed in. I think that's significant. And very helpful, just like, it's great. On the Good Friday thing, I lean towards either have it or don't have it. I'm sort of mixed on the half day. But it's nice to have a little time to think about it. And I think we're getting great input from everybody on it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, my thoughts are, I think the 2-week issue is clear. I mean, I think it makes sense personally, but beyond what my personal perspective is, we have, like I said, a resounding response to the survey. So I mean, I don't think there's really a question. I mean, the school community has spoken, told us clearly what they think we should do. It's a calendar that impacts everyone, and I think we should probably listen to them. But no decisions are being made tonight, but that's my perspective. So I agree with Mr. Dial, and I think everyone is sort of embracing that, but I could be wrong, so I'm not speaking for anyone. Good Friday, I actually think it's the same. I think the survey results are very helpful. I think it's a difficult issue because it's very important to me as someone that sits on the board that governs our district, that our public school district, that we aren't recognizing religious holidays for just one religion. We're a secular, non-religious institution, and I think it's an all or nothing proposition. That said, there are legitimate operational concerns, given the makeup of the community that we serve and the religious beliefs that the vast majority embrace. So it's a difficult issue. But to me, the survey results are really helpful because while it's not a resounding 73% that think one thing, there is clearly a response that has the largest amount of respondents that agree, and that is the half-day solution. So in a situation where I think it's sort of a difficult issue to come to consensus on and make a decision on, I think that I would turn to the results of the survey that we sent to our stakeholders. And to me, that's really helpful guidance. And I think that it makes a lot of sense because I think that for the most part, those services, those Good Friday services are in the afternoon. Certainly in the Catholic Church that is a few hundred yards away from our school, it's offered in the afternoon. So I think that is a helpful way to address that issue without observing a full day off of school for one particular religion when we don't observe other religious holidays. So I think my position is to adopt the consensus of both survey responses. But we'll see if, again, Superintendent Shannon and I will collaborate on getting some additional reminders out, a correction of that last date. We'll see if we get more input in person or virtually at the next meeting, so we can have a more robust discussion with everyone. If not, we'll have a similar discussion go around once everyone's had a chance to think about the surveys. Maybe we get more survey results because we did accurately include the survey deadline.
Yes.
That's what caused me to erroneously insert January 29th as the next meeting. So I was thinking we wanted it before the meeting. It was 3 p.m. before that meeting day, but it's 3 p.m. on January 29th is when the survey responses are due. So we still may get some and it may change things. I don't know, one way or the other. Doubtful it changes much on the winter break issue. So are there any other thoughts before we move on? Mrs. Hannah?
One quick question.
Yes.
Where did the teachers lay? Like, did they weigh in on that part? Like, would they show up for a half day or?
So we didn't separate responses by educator or staff
Okay.
member and family. We just asked. And so their responses are sort of grouped into the responses that I shared.
Okay.
So I'm thinking just to prepare for the next school committee meeting that I may just update some draft calendars. To have some updated drafts that include the 2 weeks for December break, PD on the 22nd of December, early release on January 30th, not February 6th, and then one calendar with a half day on Good Friday and one calendar with no school on Good Friday. And that way you'll be able to really look and see what those two calendars will look like.
One last question.
Yes.
If it's a half day on Good Friday, how does that impact the last day of school? Is that, it doesn't, like a half day is, okay.
It counts.
Anything else before we move on? Superintendent Shannon, anything else before we move on past the superintendent's report?
No, that's it.
All right, we'll move into the next block of our agenda, which is the teaching and learning section. Which requires me to turn the meeting over to our assistant superintendent, Dr. Leslie Scollins.
Thank you. And did you make me a co-host, by chance?
I did not,
Okay.
I didn't know, so you
Yes,
do need to
please.
be.
Just, well, because
Okay.
actually I wasn't, but then I realized I want to share something. So thank you.
Yes, no, you are
I
my
was
co-host,
I am,
you are.
okay, great, okay. So just quickly, our PD day that we had last week was terrific. The middle and high school have been working really hard on benchmark assessments and kind of pulling that all together, but working on mapping. And so that was very fruitful for them. And the elementary was doing some workshops between the both schools. So that was a really collaborative experience. Our winter benchmarks are happening for our elementary and middle school. Your students may have told you. So they're being assessed midpoint in reading and math through iReady. But what I wanted to share with you, and we've been sending this out, it was a slow opening for this. But we have a Facebook page. And here it is. And so, right now, kind of the person adding things. So it's been a slow rollout. But one of the things I want to share with you is our post from today, which, let me scroll down so you can see it, is that Dr. Duncan from the high school, her marine biology students presented, and they're going to, another group is presenting tomorrow, but their research for their course in conjunction with the Cohasset Center for Student Coastal Research. And it was so impressive. So you can, I think if I do this so the pictures be better, yeah. And so there were 4 groups, I think, right? And to have them explain their research, their hypothesis, what was exciting for them, what they learned, what the surprises were, kind of their impact on their next steps. We had one student actually in this picture, she has taken every one of Dr. Duncan's courses and she's upset because this was the last one that she will be able to take. But just the reasons they came into it, I think one student here is a sailor, and so they were really interested. It was a lens from which they were looking. So they were just really interesting. I so enjoyed talking with them. They did an amazing job presenting. No fear. No fear at all, just really relax and explaining their process. And you can see Mr. Buckley right here from CSCR and our own Kathy Cerruti also, because obviously these students took her research class in 8th grade. So just a really wonderful, wonderful experience today. So this is my plug for not only our programming, but please like us on Facebook and follow us. You'll be getting information from there. We're posting things, and it's been, I think it's a nice way for us to get information out. We did have Twitter, which became X. We don't have that anymore. This is it. And it will be feeding into our website also. So Lisa Forlisi's working on that for us. So I want to share that with you. That's what I have for you. Quick update today.
All right, well, thank you, Dr. Scollins. Do any members of the committee have any questions for Dr. Scollins? No? Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Scollins. We'll move on to our budget resource and governance section, at which time I turn the meeting to our Director of Finance and Operations, Ms. Susan Owen. Ms. Owen?
Thank you. Can you share it, right?
I sure can.
Please.
There you are. Congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you. Just a couple of rates. Not on this budget, right? Not on this budget. Good evening, everyone. This is a report on the FY25 December finance report. So it covers from July to December 31st. School budget, the voted budget amount was 23,909,000. I'll get through. We have expended a little over 10 million, and we have encumbered supplies, materials, and projected payrolls, purchase orders through the end of the year, in the amount of 14,582,000. This leaves an estimated shortfall of about $740,327. Not a great number, but this is definitely a decrease over last month. So the budget freeze is starting to help in lowering our shortfall, which I wanted to point out. We're closely monitoring all accounts. As I said, the budget is frozen. We're not allowing anything to go through unless it's necessities. Sped tuitions, the same. There was a shortfall last month of about 263,000. That has also decreased to 180,935. So again, that could be attendance, it could be students, it could really vary what that is the tuition from now to the end of June will fluctuate depending on attendance results and placements. You can see that the budget items are still the same categories that are holding us back: the tuition, the utilities, the special ed transportation, the custodial supplies, materials, or maintenance, and then our salaries. But we're definitely chipping away and trying our best to decrease that number. The next area is just the breakdown by school. Depending on what the budget is, what each school has expended, what's been encumbered, what the balance is, what percent has been used, and how many FTEs are each building. And then there is the capital from the current year, what was voted and what was voted out of the capital stabilization fund as well. You can see it here. We have a draft, which is changing as we go. It's probably changed since our last meeting. We're working diligently with leadership and town liaisons with the capital committee to come up with a very conscious number, because there's only a small amount that has to be spread throughout the whole town. So you can see here what our requests have been. This is not final. This is still in draft form. I don't believe we're meeting with capital until February, first week of February maybe. So this will definitely be more finalized, and currently the top number, you see 595,701. That number will probably decrease as we prioritize and decide what we can put off for another year and what we can't. And we still have facilities. We're looking for facilities to help us build a multi-year plan for all the asphalt, roads and sidewalks, and painting, curbing, etc., and all of it.
So that's to come later. Not really sure. We're just making sure it's on our list. It's been on our list for years. I know there's a new roads and sidewalks budget, so I'm not sure if, that will play a part in this, but we're still working through that. These are our grants. Again, you can see our balances are low. We are spending our grants wisely but effectively. And each year we have been receiving less and less in grant funding. And then the same with our revolving accounts. In past years, we've had very high balances. We have used the revolving accounts to help subsidize our budget over the last few years. Some of these accounts can no longer, subsidize more than what they're equitable to be doing. So you can see right now, athletics is running about 55,000 in the red. Still has spring fees to come in, so that will certainly make that deficit go away. They just haven't been recorded because this is through December. And the same with the school lunch. We had a very, very large balance there, but Mr. Cardona, food service director, has been very diligent as you continue to hear about all the upgrades that he has done, and he's probably opening up his own pizza business. Today he made strombolis for everyone. I don't know if it was a sample. I think it was a sample thing, but I didn't have to find out how well that went over, but it was some strombolis made. They were a little spicy. Oh, that's what I was trying. They're a little spicy, but they were good. I ate it. I was sampling. This just gives you breakdown of staffing by FTEs and headcount by grouping. Hasn't changed. Summary by personnel, summary by salaries. Nothing has changed here. This gives you each schools and how many positions are in each building and how they're funded. No changes here. We have not added or lost staff here. Total grant, my grants fund about 11.3 FTEs and our revolving fund about 22.9% FTEs. There is our enrollment for January 1st. And you can see class sizes for the elementary, still very low. And then there's a month of enrollment from October, November, December, and actually January is in here as well. And then we get into our utilities. So this is our electric summary. Again, our kilowatts are pretty much the same as last year. The price is a little bit higher, obviously based on cost. And gas, our firms are down. And our cost is also down slightly. My guess is after this month, it's probably going to be a little bit different, just because of the cold spell that we're having. Last year, this time we didn't have such a cold spell. And then we have our food service meal count that I've been working with Mr. Padone to report each month. So you can see, it's 60% participation rate this year versus 55 last year. Mr. Cadone was here last December. And then you can see the November, it was 57 and 52%. You can see how many meals we're serving, how many breakfasts, how many lunches, and then how many extra lunches are being purchased. Our participation rate is definitely up. Transportation, we're still reviewing transportation. Our ridership has increased over last year's. Some of our buses are almost at capacity. Our old Bluebird is permanently retired and in the process of being surplus through town. That and we have a minibus that's been sitting and out of commission for many, many years. So we're just trying to offload some of the, old materials, old supplies materials. I didn't want to say the old metal, sitting where we got it. So at this point in the school year, our concerns are the same. We do have a deficit. We are working very hard to rectify that by, freezing budgets and reviewing all of our accounts and working very closely But, you know, it's, again, utilities, tuitions, transportation, and some salaries. And, you know, by next month, those numbers could be lower. And I know Mrs. Shannon has more to report based on some of the things we've been doing to help with our budget.
Yeah, so, you know, we have shared that the hope was that we would be able to share the report from Open Architects at this meeting. Unfortunately, that report hasn't come in yet. I did receive an email from our consultant at Open Architects on Monday who had shared that he was trying to do a few other things, just to finalize things and to see if there was anything else he could learn. But he and I did meet on Tuesday, and so I have some high-level information that he is going to share in the report that I can share with you this evening. So first, he informed me that what their findings are is that our current financial processes are sound and that we have not found ourselves in this deficit situation as a result of any mismanagement of funds or poor processes. He shared that there is actually a lot that we are doing well. So thank you, Ms. Owen. He also shared that since the start of the school year, he has found that communication and collaboration between the schools and towns has improved and that there's a lot of hope that on both sides that this will continue, as will the relationship to collaborate on how to support the schools financially as we move into the future. He emphasized that it was really nice to see the level of communication and transparency about the current situation while recognizing that we were in a difficult place. He shared that the reason that we're in the situation is not unlike what Ms. Owen has shared, is that though the town has funded the schools above net school spending, which I will spend a little bit more time at our next meeting when I present the FY26 budget around how we get to net school spending. But although the town has funded us above net school spending, the appropriation doesn't necessarily meet our current needs. We are in a place where there are a lot of costs that are outside of our control, and that their increase has helped contribute to the situation that we are in. He did talk about that we are running a very lean budget, that there is not a lot of wiggle room for us and a lot of fat to cut, and recognize that we are trying to make cuts where we can, and a lot of that is exhibited through our current budget freeze. He recognized that we are currently as a district trying to do more with less, but these increased costs are outside of our control. And that we need to continue to look at how we partner with the town and what we do within our district to continue to look at how in a time like this, in these economic times, we continue to meet the same levels of service while we are, though the town is supportive, continuously underfunded. And so he shared, and I agree, that the district, when we were building the FY25 budget, should have made some shifts at that time, or sought out other revenue sources. And so we are in a place where we are looking at both of those things as we look towards the FY26 budget. And that we are going to have to continue to work with the town to think about how we meet our FY26 and beyond needs. We don't want to dismantle all of the good that we have done in terms of meeting student needs, that is resulting in high levels of student achievement. And we need to really take a close look at how we can achieve both goals, continue to meet our student needs and be fiscally responsible. So the bottom line he shared is that, continue to do what we're doing. As Ms. Owen alluded to, we were able to bring down our deficit by $40,000. The hope is that we will continue to bring that down. We froze the budget in November. We are finally seeing some of the fruits of that freeze. I'm hoping to continue to close that remaining gap by June 30th, knowing that we are likely not going to close the whole gap, but we have been working and cannot express more strongly the appreciation for the collaboration of the town in this area. And that, we will continue to look to how we increase our revenue or potentially make some reductions to not impact our current level of service, but to present a more level FY26 budget. And hopefully by the time we meet again, we will have the full report. So I apologize that we don't have the full report.
Are they going to present that to us?
We can ask him to come and present it. He said he would do that.
Let's do that.
Okay. I will let him know.
Okay, any questions for either Ms. Owen or Superintendent Shannon on anything that was just reported to us? Mr. Carr,
None from me.
Mr. Dial,
No, I'm just always so energized after our budget presentation.
can we return to you?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for the report update and for your report as well.
Mrs. Hannah,
I have no questions.
Mrs. Leskey, Ms. Owen, you reported that we had about an $80,000 decrease in out-of-district tuitions,
Yes.
but only a $45,000 decrease in the projected shortfall. Why would that $80,000 decrease be reflected in the overall shortfall figure?
Because some of our costs in different accounts are going up, like, for example, like substitute teachers, that account number is going to continue to grow. Those numbers are not encumbered. There are some other things that are not encumbered that are beyond our control, that are probably increasing, overtime if needed, substitute teachers, things like that. That those numbers are probably going up, why some of the others are going down. So it was probably, more of a savings. But considering we're in, another month out, our expenses are going to continue to rise in some areas, in some accounts.
Right. Does the $45,000 decrease in the overall shortfall figure reflect the over encumbrances that we had made?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, I thought we had over encumbered certain amounts, like we had
Yes,
overestimated
so
the amounts that,
we slightly overestimated the encumbered payroll for the end of June. And each month I plug in the actual payroll which subtracts off that amount. So that also could play a part in some of this as well. But I have not adjusted those, I don't want to say the buildup of, or the overestimation of encumbrances I have not changed. So
okay,
hopefully when we come to the end of June, that there will be some money remaining there in the encumbered purchase order for the salaries.
okay.
Did that answer your question, Craig?
Yes, the answer I think was no, but that's because they can't be reflected yet, but they may, once we get to that point in time, and then that whatever our reduced shortfall is may be reduced further at that time, or it may not be.
Yes, that's safe to say.
Okay. Lastly, once we have a lot going on here with your department, so I don't want to overburden you. So once we sort of get through the budget season, can you make a note to have Mr. Cordone come and give us a presentation on what he's been doing? Specifically, I'd be interested in improvements, but also I'm glad, by the way, we're starting to use that food, the school lunch revolving,
Oh, yeah.
because it was a huge amount of money. And we always had that and we weren't improving the program. So now we are, but I'd be interested to know what we're spending it on.
Sure. So I have Superintendent Shane and I have talked, and I've already asked Mr. Cadone to prepare some type of presentation for the spring.
Great.
On basically what's been happening, what's he been doing, and what his future, future plans are, and what he sees happening for us going forward. And, he's got some DESI requirements that need to adjust fees, but not second lunches, basically.
Okay, perfect. You're a step ahead of the game. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, report. Anything else, anyone, before we move on? Okay, thank you, Ms. Owen. Moving on to Block G, which is community relations and communication, reserved essentially for subcommittee and liaison reports, subcommittee and or liaison reports. So we'll just go around in alphabetical order, and if you have anything to report, feel free to share with the group. Mr. Carr? Mr. Dial?
Nothing.
Mrs. Hannah?
All set.
Mrs. Leskey?
High school's meeting next week. Advisory.
Okay. I do not think I have anything to share from my committees at this time. So no report. Okay, well, that one was quick. Moving on to the penultimate block of the agenda, school committee governance. We do have our goals, better late than never, prepared for everyone for a vote. These goals incorporated everyone's input and was the product of a group collaboration. Mrs. Leskey took the laboring oar on putting these together. They appear as item H1 in your packet. And as we had discussed at our strategic planning forum / workshop moments ago or prior to this meeting, I did suspect that we made inadvertently followed the current strategic plan, which we did. There are 4 goals, and each is reflective of a different compass point of the current and or terminating strategic plan, which is teaching and learning, social, emotional growth, resources, and community engagement. So our goals always want to be reflective of the strategic plan, and they are in this case. These are the goals that we had come up with. I don't know if Superintendent Shannon might be able to retrieve, or Dr. Scollins might be able to retrieve. There's the email that went out from Ms. Saritas that had the school committee packet material. So maybe there's a way while we're talking for you to, I would do it, but I can't access my email on this computer.
I have.
So maybe you can do that. There's no pressure. Just take your time. See if you can figure it out. Ms. Leskey, do you want to lead the conversation or introduce this at all or make any remarks? You don't have to if you don't feel like you need to, but.
No, I think that the bulk of this came from the workshop that we had back in the fall. It just reflects sort of this year that is a bridging moment in time to connect to strategic plans, but will sort of serve as beacons to guide us forward. And some of the things we've already, I think, accomplished, and other items on the goals will be works in progress.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think if you look at take the second goal, for example, support students' physical and mental wellness. We have a very timely example of that today with Jack Kearney's presentation, the representative from the Superintendent's Student Advisory Council, where he discussed the new cell phone policy, which is, and we had here as one of our strategic initiatives, or as the strategic initiative, to encourage community discourse on healthy child development by identifying and or hosting 3 or more discussions, forums, or presentations. We've had one of those, which was the Anxious Generation forum, and from it, the cell phone task force was born, and we now are about to roll out that policy. So that is an example of how we've accomplished at least part of these goals. We're looking for ideally 3 of them, and actually, Mr. Scott had just suggested another one, and the topic escapes me at the moment. Do you recall, Superintendent Shannon, what Mr. Scott was
Yeah.
talking about? He was suggesting another community read.
He is.
I think, was it based on achievement?
It's
Like,
achievement,
Okay.
it's, I have the book
Enough
on my
isn't
desk.
Enough is not enough, or no,
No. I have the book
I
on
can
my
see
desk and I've started reading it, and it's about sort of achievement culture and how achievement culture is great and has a flip side that has impact on student mental health and well-being. And just as an aside, having attended a lot of the school committee forums, I will be surprised if that doesn't come up as a theme as we look at our strategic plan.
so it's called Never Enough
There we go.
by Jennifer
There you go.
Wallace.
Yep,
I just was able to bring up
thank you.
Principal Scott's email. So he had sent it, I don't know who he had sent it out to, a few of us, I was on there. And-
PSO Buttonwoods.
And so we're thinking of doing a sort of similar, we had a lot of success from, a lot of participation from the community. We had success generating a lot of participation from the community in connection with the Youngster Generation. So I think Brian Scott, Principal Scott, excuse me, is looking to replicate that effort. So he's suggesting this, and I think it's probably something it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, more to come on that, but that's an example of how we're progressing and keeping in line with our goals. Another example is our 4th goal, empower constituents, which is really, I think, I like that better than community engagement because it I think carries with it a sense of, or impresses communicates the importance of providing agency to our stakeholders and also holding ourselves accountable. And one thing that Mr. Lesky and I have recently done is we've put together, so remember we've been talking about this community resource guide where we're trying to send this out and derive input from various community members about what they might be willing to contribute connected to their expertise. So for example, Mr. Carr has a lot of expertise in government. And maybe you would be willing to, I'm not volunteering your time, I'm speaking hypothetically, host an internship for a student or make a presentation in a class or something like that. This is just a pure example. You would then indicate that you are in the law, social studies, government area, and that this is specifically what you do. And then we would be able to compile a guide for all the teachers to utilize when they're working on different units and different topics that they're instructing students on in the classrooms. And it can, I think, deliver a more meaningful, memorable learning experience and turn towards more of this project-based learning approach that our superintendent is somewhat of an expert in. And so we just developed that. I think we haven't, I think we're about to send it out to the community. So Superintendent Shannon, I think I need to just finalize that with you. I'll swing by so we can send it out like this, start getting it out there. Because I think it's gonna require like a little bit of a push like over time to get people to do this, but I think people are going to be really interested in doing it. I think it's going to be effective. So we've started that. That's a big deal if we can get that done. So I don't know if anyone has any discussion on any of this or any points, anything, any comments, any corrections, edits, revisions, whatever. Anyone, fire will.
There's a small typo on forums.
Great.
We left on 2.
Perfect.
No, I think it's founds. Lots of discussions and founds.
Good. This is good. This is good. Thank you, Ms. Sandra. Anything else? Anyone else seeing anything else? Okay, so while we're making corrections, maybe Mrs. Lesky, as you have the document, maybe we can just put the titles above the dark boxes, the colored box, the navy blue boxes, like maybe we can shift that down a little bit and put teaching and learn, like mirror it to the compass points. So just put teaching and learning, social emotional growth, just so it's clear. Anyone else?
Excellent.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the goals as revised, given the comments tonight?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Dow. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hannah. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Great. That motion unanimously carries. Mrs. Leskey, thank you so much for doing that. And Mrs. Leskey, would you mind, once you make those revisions, to just send it to Superintendent Shannon and CC Ms. Saritas so that they are able to post it on the website for us somehow?
Yep.
Or direct it to the appropriate person that would be able to do that.
So that one.
Thank you.
Are we gonna host a FALM on this?
Multiple. Next item on the agenda are the topics not recently anticipated. Nothing was brought to my attention. Approval of minutes. Mr. Carr, do we have any?
None today, but I'll have some for next meeting.
Perfect. And Mr. Dial and I will also, we're gonna have some for the forum we just attended, the strategic planning forum.
Yep.
And the
Different meeting.
the one that just occurred, the budget workshop, yes, thank you. Which was entirely in executive session. And then there's executive session minutes that we need to, do we have those yet?
No, that's with me.
Okay, so we need to vote on whether we're going to just declassify certain executive session minutes.
Yes.
Let's try and do that. Mr. Dow, I'll help you. Let's try and get that done so we're good to go next time. So there's no approval of minutes and there will be no reason to move into executive session, I don't believe, unless you still want to give an update. Okay, so I won't skip the future agenda items. What are there any items that any members of the committee would like to see discussed at a future meeting that are on your mind? Just fire it, Will.
I'm not sure if I've said this before to be on the agenda, but interested in sort of the progress with the evaluation of the writing curriculum and any potential changes.
You have.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
all right. So that's still of interest to me.
Great, yep.
There's-
And I think
yeah.
that would be
That's right.
probably once we get through the budget season, that'd be the best thing. so
And
that we can-
they're still meeting, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so that'll give us time maybe in the spring, Dr. Scullin, that
Absolutely.
seemed like the
Yeah.
timing would be right.
Rock Roberts is facilitating. Yeah.
Anything else?
Great.
Ms. Hannah? Nothing? Okay. Nothing with athletics?
I always have questions on it,
Okay.
but I'll spare you guys right now.
Mr. Al, any future agenda items you'd like to see on the agenda?
No, I think they're all queued up.
Great. So with that, there is a reason to move into executive session. I was mistaken. I was thinking the only thing we had placed on there, had placed that on the agenda was for the consideration of declassification of minutes, but we also want to discuss collective bargaining strategy. So we are going to look for a motion, or I am going to seek a motion to put executive session for reason number 3. In Mass General Laws, Chapter 30, Capital A, Section 21. Mr. Carr? Moved by Mr. Carr. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Dial. We need to take a roll call vote in alphabetical order. Mr. Carr?
Carr, aye.
Mr. Dial?
Aye.
Mrs. Hannah?
Aye.
Mrs. Leskey?
Aye.
And the chair also votes in favor of the motion, so it unanimously carries. We will not be reconvening in regular session. So for all of you that are watching at home on Facebook or on Zoom, we thank you so much for your participation. And we look forward to seeing you soon on February 5th, 2025. Have a nice night.